Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we start this video, I want to highlight another video we just did talking about an upcoming charity stream. We will be supporting the Equal Justice Initiative and have some incredible giveaways sponsored by Novel Keys. I will put the link right up there, and I hope you check it out. But for the time being, we are talking about switches, specifically these Gateron black inks. Now, the other day we took one of these apart and looked at the internals and lubed it and spring swapped it and did everything that you can do, really, to make these switches the best they can be. Now, I went on to do another 67 of them, and it took quite a bit longer than expected, and it was quite boring. I'm just gonna put that out there. But in this video, I skip through all of the boring parts and just kind of highlight what I think are the most important elements when you're lubing your switches for the first time. So, with that in mind, sit back, relax, and I'll talk to you a bit later. Bye. Hey there. How are you? Oh, I'm okay. I've just tried to start this video twice, unsuccessfully. Okay, third time. Third time's the charm. Now for your regularly scheduled programming. Dude, it's so sad too, because there was some good content in that first try. Your copy pasta is good. It's good. But anyway, we're back. And I figured out the bug on the website that kept turning off the music. It won't happen again, I think. Okay. Alright, we're back. And we're talking switches. I've already explained this, and I don't know if I want to do it again, but I will. It was like 20 minutes ago. Alright, we got switches. These are Gateron inks. They're broken in. You break them in because you want to kind of wear down the surface a little bit. You don't want to do it after you lube them because lube prevents that surface from being worn down and becoming even smoother than you could if you just used it dry. So, you use it dry, you break it in, then you lube it. Easy. Section O video done. Springs, their preference. These are Gateron yellow springs. They're progressive springs. That means that they have a different feel as you push them down than kind of like a linear progression spring, which is supposed to be like an even amount of force through the travel. These are progressive. Oh, what else did we do? We broke open a switch. This is a switch opener. You don't have to use one. I'll show you how to do it both ways. Okay. Pop. Top comes off. Usually. Okay. Bottom. Spring. Stem, aka slider. This is what determines whether your switch is a linear or a tactile or, to some extent, clicky. These legs right here on the front are one straight line, which means they are linear. If they were tactile, they would have a kink in them. And we're going to be swapping the springs. So we're going to take the springs out of the original Gateron inks and be putting in Gateron yellow springs. Boy, I sound like such a jerk. And I don't mean to be. It's just I already did this. And I feel so dumb that I have to do it again. Alright. The other thing we're going to be doing is lubing. This is 205 grade 0. It's a very like inoffensive lube. It's kind of like a thicker lube, and I'm gonna put a thin layer on. That's my preference. Faithful It's all good. The first round was practice. It was... Oh, man. Yeah, it was practice. And then the second round was... I started to do it again, but I didn't have the mic on. Okay, it's just one of those days, you know? It's just one of those years, you know? Okay. So yeah, I'm going to break open pretty much all 68 of these. The reason I have 68 is because that's the number that I have a need for in a 65% board. And yeah, we're just going to go with that. Also, Faithful, it's so good to see you after such a long time. Thank you so much for coming by. And at this point, I'm really just kind of separating them into parts. You can kind of see just doing like tops in one place, bottoms in another, springs in another. He got a short bit. Hopefully you don't remember it too well. I feel like such an idiot. Okay. So yeah, just breaking these down. I'm gonna do this pretty quickly too, because this is the boring part of Switch Lubing. You could make an argument that all of Switch Lubing is the boring part of Switch Lubing. But really there's nothing really to learn here. We're just gonna be breaking them open. The other way you can break open a switch is just that you can get a pair of tweezers, slide them underneath these two prongs right here, kind of like lift up, crack it open on one side, go to the other side, do the exact same thing. And yeah, this does not require a special tool by any means. It's just, if you're going to be doing a lot of it, it helps. So yeah, it's the exact same end result, just you wiggle a little bit more, and it's not like press a button and you're done. But the other thing I'm going to be doing is kind of keeping track of these springs, because springs look the same by and large. And so if you can kind of like separate them out correctly ahead of time, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. So I'm just going to get a little bag. And a Post-it note. And my new fancy pen. And these are gating springs. I like fountain pens. They're nice. Lubing is actually like a really calming thing, assuming you don't waste time messing it up the first few times and then getting mad at yourself. It's a very calming, soothing experience. And then the reason I have this out is because it kind of like helps you keep track. Once we break all of these down, it's going to help us keep track of which pieces we have lubed and which pieces we haven't. But right now, we don't really care that much. We're just in break open mode. I wish there were a way to spice this up, but unfortunately, this is the reality of it. This is the untold story of spring lubing and Switch Lubing. here's the next thing. I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing because it's boring. And instead, I'm going to talk about the important parts and the interesting parts, and what people, if this were to be a video that got put on YouTube, let's say, then I would want to have like front-loaded with information rather than like information, really boring part, more information, more really boring part. So what I'm gonna do is stop this and talk about lubing, because chances are people will buy lube thinking, oh, this is what you have to do. This is what makes, you know, a Switch great, or elevates it from good to great. And they buy it, and then they don't know what to do with it. So hopefully that's not the case. Also, gateron inks, very important note, gateron inks, based on the generation, have what's called the loose leaf issue, and basically it's just that. Like, if you look at the feet on the, or these, what do you call them? Connection points on the bottom. What happens on certain gateron inks is that, like, if you just tap it a little bit, it will push up through and the leaf will just fall out. It's it falls out, and then you don't know where it goes. Okay, I think I see it. Oh, it wouldn't be a stream if I didn't drop something. Okay. Yeah, you can kind of see, like, here's half of the leaf as it has come out of the Switch. It's pretty hard to get it to focus, but then, like, it's not a broken Switch at this point. The only thing you have to do is reinsert it correctly and make sure you're not bending any pieces. So yeah, we're back in and fine. It's just something you have to be aware of when you're cracking open gateron inks specifically. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our favorite brush. The only reason this is my favorite brush is because it is kind of the perfect size for getting into the sides of a Switch. And I'll kind of give you a close-up of what I'm doing here. Get a little bit on your brush. You don't need too much. Like that much. Maybe even a little bit less. And then I used my pinky finger to stabilize. And then we're gonna go in this little channel here, because this is where we're gonna make contact. And I'll show you the analogous piece. So on the slider, that little black piece running down the side there is going to fit into those channels, and so we're going to provide that with lubrication, right? That's the end goal here, is to make sure that anytime that there's plastic on plastic, that we're giving it a nice smooth ride. And you don't need to overdo it. Just a couple strokes up and down each side. And that's it. I'm a big proponent, and again, it's all personal preference, but for me, a thin layer of thick lube is the best. Hey Kelly, how are you? Yeah, I am back, by the way. I have unhiatused. And I've got a lot more content coming because a lot of my keyboard stuff got shipped to Colorado, where I don't live, I temporarily lived there. I tried to move out, and then had to move back because of COVID. But a lot of my stuff got shipped there, and now I'm having to pay shipping twice to get it here. But yeah, I should be around a lot more, and yeah. Oh, your internet's rough? I'm sorry. Well, I'm still happy to have you here, and yeah, I don't know, it's just good to be back. It's good to hear from people again, and yeah, I'll be around a lot more, and hopefully, you know, your internet will resolve itself between now and then. Okay. So kind of going back to the basics here, we've now lubed where we want the switch to slide up and down on the inside, and this is all you have to do on the bottom. That's it. So we're gonna set that one right there, and just remember that he's our golden boy. He used to make it big. Well, the funny thing is, affiliates used to be able to do that. Affiliates used to be able to let you switch the quality, and I don't know what happened, but not anymore. Okay, but anyway, so as I was saying, we've got kind of the housing part that we've lubed. Now we're going to go to the stem part, and what we're going to do is just, as we talked about, this little black piece right here is what makes contact. So we're just going to give him a little coating. I know, and I'm pissed because it was nice. I know, it like, I love watching things on my phone at like 360p, not using any internet. Clipped that beautifully awkward moment where he almost... It's bound to happen once a stream, at least. Okay, then we're gonna go over to the other side, do the exact same thing. I'm just trying to kind of like move the piece around so you get nice lighting on it. We're gonna go on either side because it does fit into the channel. It's not just the outside, it's also this outside bit right here, this outside bit. Okay, so that's the two channels that we were talking about, but there are other contact points. There are other points that we worry about and we want to lubricate. And that would be, on a linear switch, the legs. Because on a linear switch, we want it to be nice and smooth. And so we're gonna lube these legs here. Get you that light. Ooh, my hands are shaky. We're gonna do the front, because that makes contact as well with the top of the housing. And you don't have to be as precise as I'm being. I'm just very, I don't know, meticulous when I lube switches. And then I flipped it over, and now we're on the back. Do that. And the reason that I said we're only going to do the legs on a linear switch is because if you have a tactile switch and you like the tactility of it, you're not going to want to lube the legs, because the legs are where the tactility comes from. That's where you get that feedback as it is going through its travel. Okay. So I'm going to set him down just for a second to talk about springs. And I'm going to use these Gateron yellow springs. And there are a ton of different ways to lube springs. The most popular probably is bag lubing, which would be if I were to put all of my springs into a bag and then put a known quantity of lube in there. And then what you do is you would toss all of your springs in there, and you'd probably want them to be fairly well separated. but then you actually want to get some like air into it as well, so that it's puffed up. Okay, so then basically you have this big bag of air and lube, and then you would shake it around. You're gonna hop in and out? Oh, that's totally fine. Oh, there's an Apex Legends tourney going on. Nice. I didn't know you were into Apex. That's really cool to know. But yes, have fun. Okay, so that would be the bag lubing method. You can totally do it by hand if you want to. It's just tedious. Because we're talking about, like, you know, 100 of these at a time. Obviously for a 65%, like, it's gonna be less, but if you're gonna do 100 springs, it can get pretty tedious. Like, if we're talking about 3 different pieces, right, that we need to lube, the slider, or the stem, the bottom housing, and the spring, if you can cut out a third of the number of things that you need to lube, you're saving yourself a ton of time. And you can do the same thing, too, with your stems. Again, just primarily for linear switches. But you can save a ton of time doing that. I just don't. I kind of take the slow, boring route. And this is just me getting some around the top. Again, where we're making contact with plastic. So this would be the plastic that hits that piece. And you flip it over. And again, this is preference. You can add as much as you want or as little as you want. I don't do, like, if I'm gonna be hand lubing, I'm not gonna do the entirety of the spring, just because I feel like that's just gonna add muddiness to the feel. What I want is just that nice smooth contact with, like, where metal meets plastic. Okay. And sometimes it's really nice to have tweezers around if you're trying to be nice and precise. So we'll just reassemble this. And again, this is our gateron yellow spring going into our gateron ink housing. The other nice thing about having tweezers is that you don't run the risk of kind of like undoing the work you just did. Okay. And I put the stem in with the legs facing towards the leaf. Okay. And then our work is done. Like, that's it. You just rinse and repeat however many dozens of times you need to do it. We don't lube the top because we have already done a lot of, like, the important work on the stem itself. And then basically there's only one way this can go, but if you look, there's kind of a slot on this side, and then those 2 holes, that's where LEDs go through. So if you wanted to, you could basically put an LED through that slot right there and pass through to the PCB, and you can kind of see those 2 holes on the bottom side now. So that is a nice lubed linear switch, and I wish it could translate well. Nope. I wish it could translate well through the microphone, but there's no way that it will. But I'll do my best. Okay. There's an unlubed one. Luckily, gateron inks are very smooth on their own, so, like, they don't really need it, but versus that was unlubed. This is lubed. World of difference when you multiply that times 68. That's all I'm saying. World of difference. So yeah, that's the interesting part. There are also tons of different types of lube. Got 3204. Got dielectric grease for stabs, though most people are using 205 grade 0 now for stabs as well. We've got 206 grade 00. We've got MCG 129, aka Cristo Lube. Like, it's really just that there are so many options out there that the only way to understand what you would want is to, like, get time with them. And in a non-COVID world, you can go to meetups and you can talk to your friends and you can get experiences with these things without having to, like, invest a ton of time and money into it, because it can be very expensive. There are waiting lists. I know for 205 grade 0 right now, they're basically doing 50 orders a day from switchmod.net, and like that's it. And they sell out every single day. So it can be a big investment of time and money if you don't know what you want. Luckily with 205 grade 0, like it's very plain Jane, and it's a pretty easy recommendation. But with everything else, like, do I know if I like MCG 129? No. Do I know that I like it specifically on linear switches? No. Do I know that I like it on tactile switches or silent switches? Like, there's so many different permutations and combinations out there that it's really an impossible ask to have some, or Xylants or Pandas, it's really an impossible ask to have anybody know every single combination, and that's why, you know, getting exposure is so nice. Or buying a switch tester, or, you know, I wish there were like lube testers too to go with your switch tester, but that's not really the case. And yeah, it can be kind of rough. And that's one of the things that I really don't like about the hobby sometimes, is just how prohibitive it can be. Not just cost prohibitive, but prohibitive from logistics, from the fact that if you see something that you like, if you see a keycap set that you really like, chances are you're not going to get it for 6 months. And that's rough to not kind of be able to have the instant feedback and know that, oh, this was right for me, or oh, this was wrong for me. Because then you see something going on again at like another group buy, and you say, oh, that's also really cool. I probably like that, but I still don't have my first set, so maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know. I guess I buy it. And it can kind of snowball from there. And it happened to me. Like that's how I am where I am. And so half of my videos are like cautionary tales of, take it slow, please for the love of God, take it slow. There's so much out there. There's too much. You gotta take it slow. And yes, that is how you get addicted. And I am here telling you multiple thousands of dollars later that it's probably not worth it. So it's not to say don't do it. It's just take it slow. You don't have to experience all of keyboards at once. Also, what is this song? It's called Broken Carousel. I hate it. I hate it. We're skipping. Okay. So yeah, we've done the bulk of the work for a single switch, and I really like how it turned out. Yep. I really like how it turned out. And so we're going to just kind of keep going with that. And this is this is one of those processes that you can get really good at, and you can optimize in a bunch of different ways. And so I'm going to kind of try to do that as we go. Just go nice and fast. And at this point, the stream kind of becomes a chill stream, where we just chat and hang out, and people ask me questions, hopefully. If you don't have any questions, then that's fine too. I'm here on a Saturday night. I don't expect other people to be out here, but if they are, they're more than welcome. I'm tempted to look up the gateron ink spring just to see. Okay, 60 gram actuation, 70 gram bottom out. So I'll have to add that to my little note here. And 70 gram bottom out. Cool. And there's a chance that I'll use those for something else. It's just that I know that I like the gateron yellow spring a lot, and the gateron ink spring was just a tiny bit too stiff for me. So that's how I came to that conclusion. But boy howdy. Just like there are so many different switch types and so many different lube types, there are so many different spring types, aftermarket springs. TX springs are, you know, a quality option. Cat Wee Wee springs are another quality option. I wish there were more though. I wish there were more and more availability, but right now that's what we got. Also, I really wish that there were more options in terms of progressive springs. So gateron yellows are progressive springs, but they're kind of tamely linear or tamely progressive springs. I wish we had some like really progressive springs. I think Brian from Top Clack has also said that. Like, it would just be really cool if we had some really crazy springs. Oh, ooh, sci-fi time travel Jesus film that was released this year? Have fun. That sounds like a trip. Enjoy it, sir. It's called Assassin 33 AD. It's wild. Check it out. Okay. Yeah, please do put it in the Discord. FYI, we have a Discord, and it has also been kind of popping recently. I've been trying to simplify it and make it more user-friendly so that new people aren't overwhelmed by the fact that I'm interested in everything. I'm interested in art and music and cars and watches and Dungeons and Dragons and like all kinds of stuff. And so I had initially set up the Discord to be like, hey, here's all the cool things we can talk about. Each one has a channel. But I think it was a little overwhelming. So I have since toned that down substantially. Yeah, thank you very much for putting that link in there. If you are watching this on YouTube, it will also be in the description. This is good chill music. Earlier music was less chill. But you might be saying to yourself, EY, what will these be going into? And I say, that's a fantastic question, metaphysical you. Going into some super secret things. We are finally at the point in our little review career where people are wanting to send us stuff before they get released, and I'm very excited. So we're gonna have some really, really cool budget options coming up. It is one of the mass drop things. By the way, it's dropped now. It is one of the drop things, but there are two things from drop. By the way, I don't use them. You should. Don't need to know the name. Pish posh. Drop is awesome. I was a customer of theirs for like, I don't know, almost 10 years. And then I was like, hey, I'm using your stuff and I'm buying it and I'm talking about it. Maybe we could do a thing where you send me stuff and I talk about it. And they were like, sure, yeah, that seems like a thing we would do. So they're super nice guys and girls. But yeah, I've got at least I've got at least 4 full builds coming up soon. And then more on the horizon after that. But like 4 that are in transit to me. I'm very excited. Because I've been kind of without keyboards for a while. I mean, I've had them, but I've been without work to do on them just because shipping has been a nightmare recently. Everybody's production schedules have been pushed back. But we are finally breaking free of that, it seems. Again, from the manufacturing side, not from the like don't stop doing all of the things the CDC recommends, obviously. But manufacturing seems to be picking up pace again. I guess another thing that I could talk about while we're talking about switches is the difference between plate mount and PCB mount switches. So you see how these guys have extra feet, like those clear feet right there? Those actually go through the PCB and help stabilize it. Otherwise, if they didn't, you would just be relying on these 2 contact points, these 2 pieces of metal right here, which are very thin, and the solder that you use to hold them in place. That would be your only connection point to the PCB. And this, like these extra feet, add a lot of rigidity. I should also say this center piece right here adds some rigidity, but I think all switches should come as 5-pin switches. 5 pins being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because if you need to, and your PCB doesn't have the holes for these guys, right? Like, if you buy a PCB and it doesn't have 5 holes per switch, The only thing you need to do is use your little flush cutters and snip them off. And boom, you're done. So I try to only buy PCB mount switches because you can go one way but not the other. Dude, you guys are gonna be so surprised by the drop stuff though. Ah, nope. It's so cool. Okay, we're getting close to the end. And then what we'll do is we'll place all of these guys kind of in the same direction. I'm gonna put leaf facing away from me. And right now I'm just kind of doing this to clear some space. And keep things all nice and separated and even. And it's really important to make sure that with gateron inks, again specifically, that you're kind of keeping track of if the leaf has stayed in place or if it has tried to move around on you at all. So this one feels loose, so I'm just gonna make sure that he's in the right spot. Oh, I guess I could talk. Hang on, does this work? Yes, okay. I'm gonna use our super zoom in capabilities now. Okay, so if for whatever reason your leaf does come out, right, and you're like, oh no, it's out, how do I put it back in? Okay, it's like it just comes out entirely. And you put it back in, and you're like, cool. The thing went into place, and now it's coming out the other side, and we're done, right? No, you've done it wrong. That was a bait. There was no winning in that scenario. Okay. The reason why is because there's a difference between these two things. You see the leaf on this one? You've put the kind of like hump-shaped one over the little piece of metal. So basically you want it to go behind it, and on this one I've put it in front. And this would be like, you could reassemble the Switch like this and not know, other than it's gonna, not work correctly. But that's just another thing to be careful about, is that there is a right and a wrong way to reassemble a Switch if the leaf comes out. Oh, the other thing that I want to do, I don't know if I told you about this before, but I want to do Twitch chat designs a keycap set, and I finally have all the tools to do it. it's gonna be heckin' cool, man. It'll just be like anybody in chat can vote for colors and themes and profiles and like all that kind of stuff. And we're just gonna make something, and if it's good, like we're gonna try to push it to interest check and group by phase. That's what that would be like the coolest thing I've ever done with my life. If it actually makes it to group by, but chances are you guys can't be trusted, and no, nobody would want to buy your crap. No offense. Minor offense. Okay, so now that those are all in place, let's see. I think I actually will. Well, will I? No, I'm not gonna bag lube these. Well, can I get enough air in this guy? Let's find out. Nah, see, that's not good. I need a bigger bag. Anyway, we'll just do it by hand. I've got time to kill. So yeah, this is where we're gonna go just up and down each row. Got a little bit of 205. And the only thing that I would say in terms of like how much lube you have on your brush at any given point in time is like enough for at most 2 switches. And the reason I say that is because like otherwise you're going to be risking globbing, and like unless you're extremely precise with the amount of lube that you have on your brush at any given point in time, it can get kind of goopy in there, and that will like it'll actually make your switches feel sluggish. And it's hard to explain if you haven't done anything like this before, but think of it like, you know, an actual like hydraulic system to some extent. Like you're gonna have to be pushing that lube out of the way if there's too much. If it's just a nice thin layer, it's kind of removing friction, but you're not having to push it out of the way to get your switch to actuate. Also, I apologize for like being out of frame most of the time. I understand that doesn't make any sense, and it's not entertaining to watch. But like I like to get really up close and see what I'm doing. And also in this lighting, it really helps me to differentiate between which ones I have done and which ones I haven't. So, sorry. Also, I would recommend, if you are doing this, to find a brush that really fits well into the contours of a switch. So like, the reason that I like this brush so much is when it has some lube on it, right? It's got a bit of a fine tip to it, and it fits perfectly right in there. And then you just brush up, and like it's got like it's just thick enough so that it's actually coating not just the wall on the outside, but also like the channels that go up the sides. So having a really nice brush that you like is really important in my opinion. And really makes a world of difference when you're talking about lube efficiency and what's the other thing? Like, control. Making sure that you're not getting lube where it doesn't belong. Adding to that muddiness that we were talking about. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay. Too long? Yes. What I was going to say is, if anybody ever tries to get me to lube switches for them, the answer is more than likely going to be no, unless it comes with a board. Like, I'll lube switches as long as I am allowed to work on a board at the same time. I don't particularly like lubing switches for other people, like as a revenue source. I don't think it's terribly worth my time. But I do lube all of my own switches because I'm very particular about them. But I have somebody who's going to be sending me a board, and I'm going to be doing his switches, but it's okay because I'm doing the entire board and tuning everything. I guess that makes it 5 boards that I have in transit. Too lazy and too busy? Oh yeah, I can totally find other things to do in this time, but that's not the point always. Like, sometimes I have to force myself to just slow down. I think I already did that switch. A little bit too much on it. Corn Dog Avenue is the name of this delightful track. I'm going to skip it. Okay, this one's called Piggy Blues. I do not know how we transitioned into like a farm theme with our music, but here we are. I think I've actually shut off streams before because I thought lubing was too boring. I should probably do that again. I should probably just shut it down. Lubing is so boring. But it feels so good when you've done it. Futile, this is one of the reasons that I kind of do and don't want you to lube your switches. Just because, like, it's so hard to go back once you felt a really well-lubed switch. But it's so annoying to get there sometimes. Because yes, you are too busy, I'm sure. But it's another one of those things where it's like, I put my time and effort into it, right? Great example, this watch. Gotta use them first, sure. Great example, this watch, right? Like, I bought it, but then I decided to mod it. I gave it a coin edge bezel and a ceramic loomed bezel insert. Like, everything that I do, I like to impart some of myself into. And lubing, you know, does that for me when it comes to switches. Okay. So we finally reached the portion of the show where we've done the entirety of the bottoms. And then we're going to do our springs next and just kind of like plop them into place one by one. Again, much easier to keep track of. And I'll show you a little trick. So what I do is when I'm lubing a spring, right, we showed this earlier where I just kind of like go on the outside, on the inside, and then rather than doing the other side immediately, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in place. Okay. I'm gonna do half of the spring now and then half later. And this kind of goes back to that like assembly line type process where these are just like those little optimizations that you can do to keep it moving a little bit faster. And then just to explain what's going to happen next, not keep you entirely in suspense. So now that these are in place, they essentially have a tiny little bit of glue on the bottom that's holding them in place with the lube. The lube, you know, at the bottom there is going to kind of like keep them straight. But then what you can do is some people will kind of just go like, you know, but like it's flopping all over the place and it's very hard to keep a hold on. So what I do is I push it forward. I don't know if you can really see this. Okay, so it's straight there, and you can either kind of like do it like that when it flops around, or what I do is I push it forward with my middle finger, and it just keeps it so much more solid, and you have so much more control over it, like that. And then it's done. And then again, like we're gonna come back to all of these as we go through, but that's kind of the short version of what I'm gonna be doing here. Remember earlier in the stream when I was like, it's nice to slow down and do something nice and soothing. Take it back. It was nice to do something slow and soothing for like an hour. Now we've been live for 2 hours, and I'm just like, don't know if it's worth it. Is it bad how much I miss Stay Hydrated Bot? Because I really miss him. Okay, hey, whoa, look at that. Look at that, guys. We got all of our springs in place. This is just the bottom side spring, or the bottom of the spring that's been lubed though, so we're gonna do the tops really, really fast. Yeah, I just, like, I forgot, I legitimately forgot how boring this is. Like, it's been a while since I've done this, and I legitimately forgot how boring and how long this takes. Okay. We're finally done with springs. We can move on to stems, and we're just gonna go lightning speed. I can see the finish line. I know. If this makes it to YouTube, what's gonna happen is it's just gonna be like a compilation of me being really optimistic at the beginning, explaining things, and then like a super cut of me crying in the middle, talking about how it wasn't worth it, talking about how I'm about to go insane, like how almonds are gonna become our overlords, you know, crazy stuff, things that crazy people say, and it's just gonna be me going insane for the next 3 hours. That almonds thing, though, is true. Just FYI. Okay, last one done. Paper towel to clean up my tweezers. And my brush. I just get it basically kind of dry so that I can store it and it doesn't just like have a glob of lube on it. Speaking of caffeine, you need to go make some? I don't know what time it is for you, but it's so late at night. You're gonna have caffeine? Crazy man. Get some decaf or something. Oh. I think the latest that I can drink caffeine is like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Otherwise, I'm just up all night. Ten out of 10. They are very, very smooth. But they're not going to go into a board tonight, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen next. But I'll put them, I'll say 68 GAT inks broken in, and then I'll mark out but not lubed. Broken in. And lubed with 205G0. Oh yeah, and they have GAT inks with GAT yellow. Springs. Okay. Plus ultra. You know? Plus ultra. Alright, well, it's late. Y'all, whoever decided to stick around should really, really go to bed. Or just rethink your life if you spent this much time watching me lube switches. But I love y'all. I guess so. Some people stick around late into the night, and I don't know who it is. But, boy, they're the real ones. But, yeah, we're gonna... What's worse, watching EY loop switches or being stuck in Shadow Veil? It's a tough one. It's definitely not cut and dry. I'll probably go with Shadow Veil. Dude, I don't know. I'm gonna have much better content coming up. That's all I can say. Is that it's only uphill from here. that time. I don't know what that time is. 11:17. I need to get to bed. You need to get to bed. Everybody needs to go to bed. 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 You. Bed. You. Bed. Alright. I hope everybody has a wonderful night. I'm going to host Gasp just because she's doing her subathon. Keyboards. And hopefully you have some fun over there. I don't know what she's doing, but she's doing it for a heckin' long time. So go say hi. Bye. Thank you for stopping here and witnessing my mental breakdown. Good night.